Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. I'm Jeffrey Darty, your friendly neighborhood Christian whistleblower. Welcome to the Gospel Truth Channel. Very, very special night tonight. I hope that you brought your paper. I hope that you're ready to take some notes. I'm very happy to have with us tonight the editor of UNICUS magazine, Mr. Robert Stanley. And I'm very, very excited to have him. Many of you have seen him on the Leak Channel program. And he wrote one of the best articles that I have read to date, and certainly the best article on the Las Vegas situation, looking beyond the surface down to the real roots of it. And unicusmagazine.com is his website. Amazing work that has really caused me to even go deeper, I think, in what I've been doing. So let me present to you, introduce to some, and present to others, Robert Stanley, a.k.a. UNICUS. Thank you, sir, and welcome to the channel.
Jeffrey, thank you for having me on your show.
It's my pleasure and my honor, believe me. Now, I did ask you to come on and talk about your article, Satanic Sacrifice in Sin City. With your permission, I'd like to ask you a couple of quick questions before that about some of the things you talked about with Rex. Is that okay?
Of course.
Great. I appreciate it. Now, you said that you personally have met Inky and that he was upset with you because of some of the things that you're exposing. Is that accurate?
At the time, I wasn't exposing anything. It was September 21st, 1985, when he confronted me because I interrupted a feeding frenzy of what the Gnostics called archons. Mm-hmm. And that was in Malibu, where I was working as a security guard. But there was a blood sacrifice literally taking place at a home where I was working security on the beach. And it was a young boy bleeding to death in front of his grandparents. So when I interrupted that, I intervened, and it caused a ripple effect. And I'm absolutely convinced that's why he confronted me later that night when I was praying or meditating up on top of a mountain, had an out-of-body experience, and he just got right in my face.
Amazing. So, and it's obviously you lived to tell the story.
Yeah, I don't think he wanted to kill me. He wanted to convert me, control me, like he does pretty much everybody else, or all the other souls that are here. He wants them to worship him.
Gotcha. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought you told Rex earlier when you were on his show a few days ago that now he's not happy with you because you're telling too much truth. Is that correct?
What I said was, when we're talking about the matrix that he created, that Enki created, yes, I know that he and his minions are very unhappy with the fact that I'm exposing this final level of understanding, because what it does is, for souls that are awake, this finally gives them the realization that they have always had the option to leave. They chose to come here. They just forgot. And that's a disadvantage for them to have forgotten that particular aspect of how they got here, who they really are, and more importantly, how to return home.
Absolutely. It makes perfect sense. And the reason that really sprung to me and really it just hit me like a sledgehammer is recently, and I feel like this was something that was very real, and perhaps having you on is another step of understanding for me, because I got the crazy idea that I call him the rat bastard because I don't want to give his name and give him power, but I think it's the same guy you're talking about as Inky. I came under the impression that it's demonstrable that for as long as we can remember in human history, he's done a really lousy job administering this earth or this realm that we're in. Nothing but war, nothing but bloodshed, nothing but death, nothing but fear. And he has along the way hijacked the praise and worship of many, many other gods. So I started thinking, well, since he's done such a bad job and since he has hijacked and blockaded these other gods, what if we went to these other gods and tried to get them together and go to him and say, hey, look, either get right or get gone? What do you think about such an audacious attitude?
At this point, I would say that's not going to work, because this is his domain. This is his universe. The Matrix was designed so that he would never have to answer to anybody.
And you don't even think he's actually real, right? He's part of this Matrix.
He created the Matrix. He is a real soul. He has a divine aspect. However, what he did was very egotistical, and it was rebellious. However, as you can read, as we were discussing before, the Divine Secret Garden outlines how this rebellion actually is serving a higher purpose. His parents, the true gods or goddesses, whatever, the parents, our mother and father, beyond the matrix that created our spirit soul, actually allowed this to happen. And so not all souls or spirits have come into the matrix. Only the very youngest of them came here because they didn't know better, and also because it was a curiosity. They'd never seen anything like it. It was really new. It's different. This blending of good and evil, truth and lies, it seemed very challenging and interesting. And so the real problem, as I said before, is the souls that came here over time, they forgot who they really are and how they got in. So this is why you've had different elders of our family, our true spiritual divine family, have come here and shown us the way out, Jesus being the most obvious. However, as you said, everything that he did, everything he really was hijacked after they murdered him.
Absolutely.
So
now,
or murdered the body. Sorry. He never was. None of us are really here. These avatars, these bodies are part of the matrix.
So even you and I talking to each other, or at least you, because you know about you are not this body that's talking to me, right? This is a projection of you and you're somewhere else, correct?
Our souls do not exist in the matrix. They're connected to it remotely, much like if you're sitting on a couch playing a video game, you have a controller and you're controlling an avatar in the game. So this isn't just a game. It is a simulation, more accurately. It is a simulation based on something that is real.
Gotcha.
So it's a virtual reality for our souls, but our souls are not fully here. That's an important distinction for people to understand.
Absolutely. So when souls came here, I don't mean to make it sound mundane, but was it somewhat like a spiritual Universal Studios? Was it a new experience, a new sensory outlet that they had not experienced yet?
Right. It doesn't exist anywhere else. This duality that we have here, the insanity, the control, and more importantly, the competition. Outside the matrix, in the higher spirit realms of what we might think of as heaven or something, nirvana, fifth dimension, whatever you want to call it, there isn't any competition. Everything is about cooperation and collaboration for creation. All these spirits are from the creators, the true creator parents of all. So naturally, because we are seeds from that tree, the tree of life, that's the distinction. That is the family tree of life that exists outside the matrix. The matrix is the creation of Enki, and his family tree is the tree of good and evil, symbolically.
That's fascinating. So, I've really felt strongly this urge and this push and this thought of rebelling, if you will, saying this isn't going our way, this isn't right, other than trying to go to other gods and evict a guy whose creation this is. What do you think is a better way of channeling that, in your opinion, that energy or that thought?
Well, that's a good question. That's why I wrote the other article, The Matrix Exit. And I summarized there how we can embrace divinity, our divinity, if we are souls here, because I can't really say who is a soul, or I should say, which of the avatars of the 7+ billion that you see running around, which of them are connected to a soul? That is something that only that person, that soul, can decide. If in fact, because a lot of them are still asleep. But so to answer your question, you better ask me again, because I'm thinking about 10 different things right now.
I can understand. And that's fascinating. And I just came to the realization, I believe it really was yesterday, and I didn't come to it in these terms, but I realized that there's those of us here that are souls in your description, but there are people here that are not souls. And to your description, they're just part of the game, right?
Correct. I mean, all of us are, in the sense that our bodies are, the avatars are part of the matrix, but those of us that are connected to souls, that are actually souls connected to the matrix, are completely different than those that are just running around that are programmed. So again, that's why I wrote the summary. After the interview with Rex, I realized that there was some things that some basic questions that I wanted to address about how your question was how do we deal with this? Do we ask for divine intervention? No, we ultimately choose to leave the matrix, but that's not such a simple thing.
Right.
It sounds simple, but especially for souls, these young souls that came here that have been here for what we consider to be multiple lifetimes, when in fact there is no life. It's not real. This isn't reality. Nothing here is truly
So you're
alive.
pressing reset at the end of one game and starting another.
Correct. So how does one leave or disconnect and not be recycled or reincarnated back into the matrix? And this is what I discuss in brief in the article, The Matrix Exit.
And that was brilliant, the analogy you made. And I got it also, I think, in the American Book of the Dead was you're in a theater, just leave the theater. You simply leave the theater. You don't watch the movie again.
I know, but see, the problem is some of the souls that have been here so long watching the movie, they believe that that's real. That's the problem. This was one of the great analogies or lessons that we learned from the movies of the Matrix, is that what you believe is what you become. So, and ultimately, this belief that the Matrix is real is what keeps us here. Now, this is important because Enki and his crew know that once the last soul leaves the Matrix, it will no longer serve a purpose and it will cease to exist. And he and all the others who really are souls who have been administrating this madness will ultimately have to go somewhere as well. I don't know if they'll return to the higher realms or not. Maybe they'll just hang around in lower realms and figure something else out. But the Matrix as we know it will no longer be a soul trap or a classroom or a simulation. It just won't exist. There's no purpose to it. It's sort of like if, Disneyland, if nobody came anymore, the park would just, it would cease to exist. Eventually it would just collapse because there'd be nobody going. There'd be no money to fund it.
I'm from Florida, and there was a place when I grew up as a kid that was called Six Gun Territory. Loved it. It was like the Old West. You'd go there and there's cowboys and Indians and the whole thing. And it was my favorite place to go, but guess what? It no longer exists. Why? Because there's no purpose. People quit going.
Sure. Right. So there you go. Yeah.
So there's people that have souls that are in this matrix. They're not here, but they're playing a game of a I'm a soul outside this matrix, hopefully, and this is the game I'm playing. And there are other people in this matrix that are not souls outside of it. They're strictly players in the game. They're
programs, sure. Like whenever you play a video game, you have competitors.
Right.
Right. Even if let's just say you're racing, you have the other cars around you are not, sometimes they could be people connected to it. If you want to do that, you play multiple players. So there's your analogy. But most of the vehicles that you see in the video game, they're part of the computer program.
So would you say that the first step for everybody listening is to figure out, am I a soul playing in this game, or am I a piece of this game? Or if you're a piece of this game, would you even ask that question?
Exactly. That's a good point. And it comes up, it's delineated very well in the book series called The Divine Secret Garden. It's a number of books. But in any case, yes, that's one of the indicators that a soul is connected to a so-called body here in the matrix, is if that individual is concerned about spiritual matters and is doing something to improve themselves or help others, be of service to others, or it's just awake. You can tell when somebody's truly asleep. They just go with the flow. They don't question anything, and basically they're told what to do, and they do it without question. So that's an indicator, but that's not proof, because here's where it gets tricky: is that could also be a soul that is basically sleepwalking, that they've forgotten who they are. They believe everything about the matrix so deeply that they just go along with it.
Absolutely. So, I just had a great question and I lost it.
It'll come back.
It'll come back. So it was, the Christ said that, be careful that you don't cast your pearls before swine, because
Yes.
if you do, they're liable to just forget your pearls and come and rend you. So I'm thinking about finding out, trying to wake people up. And if you get to some people that won't wake up and they just continually are bang, bang, I think of the trolls in these chat rooms, bam, 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 you give them a shot or two, then you realize they're swine. In our analogy, they would just be people that don't have souls. They're part of the game. Just let them go. Don't extend any more energy. Or do you think that's too tough?
No, that's actually, I think that's fairly accurate. There's some evidence floating around out there that says or claims that a lot of these trolls are actually bots. Originally, the government had paid people to do it, but once the AI got strong enough to do it, it's for them. These chat bots are very prevalent, and they're a lot more advanced than most people know because we're not being told the entire truth. We never are. So yes, I do believe that a lot of those trolls are just serving a purpose for the Matrix.
So they really are literally bots.
Yes.
Right. And you said on the show you did with Rex that this is really not a prison and it's not eternal. What did you mean? Okay,
my understanding at this point is that we chose to come here. A lot of us have stayed far too long. It would be like going to school and then forgetting that there's an entire real world out there. You can't live your life at school. You have to go back into the real world at some point.
Right.
So yeah, we can. This is never designed to be eternal. It's just those of us who came here as young seeds of light, souls, have developed skills that we never would have developed had we not come here. So despite all the difficulties, I mean, actually, it is the challenges that we face here and overcome ultimately is what gives us these greater abilities.
Gotcha.
That we will take with us, because that's all we're going to take with us is those experiences, those skills that we've developed.
Gotcha. Now here's the $1 million question. If someone decides they want to leave the Matrix, how do they do it? Can you really answer that question?
Yes, absolutely. Because a lot of people have asked me after the fact, and it's one of the reasons I wrote that article, is to help people understand. One of the things I don't address that has been asked to me privately through email is, well, what about committing suicide? Won't that allow me to go now? And my answer has always been no, absolutely not. That's almost as far as I know, it's a guaranteed return ticket back into the Matrix.
So let me just emphasize that, because there's people that I've talked to about suicide and they do listen, and I do a lot of personal work. So what this expert is telling us is that suicide is the worst thing you can do. It's a guaranteed trip back into the Matrix, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yes, and it puts you at a disadvantage on a soul level, because now your soul is connected to an infant that's dependent on parents or so-called people that may not even have souls at all, that are just there to control you further and to keep you in the Matrix. Because as I said, this is like job security for Enki, the Luciferians that run this thing. And some of them really are just AI.
Right. Now, would you hazard a guess at approximately how many among the 8 billion inhabitants of this earth are AI and how many have souls?
Well, all of our bodies are basically biological machines within this Matrix. But my understanding is that there's been an increase of soulless bodies in the Matrix, because they know they're coming up to this huge window of opportunity where more and more of the souls are waking up. And they know that many of them will choose to leave in the near future. So they're doing everything they can to distract us and dissuade us from this. So this is a really challenging time.
Will there be more souls coming into this Matrix, into this game?
I can't tell you that.
Okay.
I'm really not sure. Of course, I would assume that they could, but at this point, I don't think they would, because it's not new. It's been around for quite some time. And I'm pretty sure that the word is out beyond the Matrix that this is really a very hazardous place to come unless you are a mature soul. I mean, again, we're back to this analogy of an amusement park. If a child goes there and they got stuck there, if they had to live their life at Disneyland, they would become very strange over time. And at some point,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, and then at some point your family's going to come looking for you and say, hey, come on home. This isn't real. You're never going to continue your growth if you just stay here.
And it kind of gives me a little bit of hope, because if you're here and you are a soul, you probably passed that little sign that says you must be this high to ride. So you probably have the ability to leave if you can just realize and leverage that ability. Would you say that's too optimistic?
It starts with a choice.
Right.
First, you have to realize, believe that the matrix is not real. And this is difficult. Controlling one's thoughts and emotions are very difficult in the matrix because there's so many others that are competing to control our soul. Right.
Now, the matrix is not real, but its creator, Inky, is a being with a soul, so he is real, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's a mature soul, by the way. He is a mature soul. A child couldn't create something like this. He is a very mature soul, and he is divine on some level. He's just gone astray. You may say he's a rebel. I would agree. Mad scientist, whatever you want to call that. But he is very skilled at confusing us.
Absolutely.
And in doing so, this is a very effective means of controlling us. In other words, we have free will, even in the matrix. However, if we're fed a bunch of lies, which we are constantly, we make choices based on those lies. And then, of course, the outcome is usually not very pleasant.
Not for us, that's for certain.
No.
Now, we hear a lot of things these days from people that are into scaring people, and people that are buying this hook, line, and sinker, talking about the time of the end. And you hear a lot of references fairly recently about, like it was in the days of Noah. And you said something to me earlier. Ask me about Noah.
Yes, because we need to discuss this. Noah was a demigod. He's a hybrid. He was one of Enki's.
I smile because I went on a limb and taught that, and a lot of people gave me crap. But see, I'm not the only one, guys.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not. This isn't my opinion. This is based on a research of the available public record.
I agree 100%.
Okay, so there are accounts of Noah when he was born looking very strange and acting very strange. In fact, when I first read the account, my head just went crazy because I was like, oh my God, that sounds like Enki.
He had the eyes of a crocodile, at least. Maybe they were luminescent. His skin was maybe scaly, surely white.
Radiant. They said he was glowing. I was like, wait a second. Only people like Enki had that ability. And the father fled. And so anyway, it would make sense why when the so-called flood, the great flood, that why Enki would have spoken to Noah and instructed him. It wasn't Jehovah as we know it. It was Enki. And this is important because the bloodline that he crafted here has this issue of being satanic or Luciferian. Right? Everybody after the flood supposedly was descended from Noah and his immediate family, which means that all of us at that point would be purely Luciferian, as if it wasn't before. But see, this is the problem with the narrative that they are constantly throwing at us. It is good and evil. It is truth and lie. But it's an important distinction for people to understand, because the way they set it up, the good cop, bad cop routine that they're playing, Lucifer is actually the good guy. Whereas the bad guy is Satan, who is actually either an aspect of Lucifer or possibly one of his sons. I prefer the latter. It makes a lot more sense to me.
That's a powerful analogy. So, yeah, that's tremendous stuff. Anything else you want to say to us on that score about Noah?
Well, it was all a setup to consolidate his power over us, over our souls. I mean, or I should say the control. It's a power trip. Sure, it's an ego trip, but it is serving a purpose. And this was really very liberating, eye-opening when I finally came to that realization after reading the book series of Divine Secret Garden. It actually started to make sense to me that, see, because here's my conundrum about it. Okay, look, if there is a benevolent, loving God or goddess or creator, parents out there, why would they permit all this to happen to their children? It didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. It seemed as though God or the gods were psychotic. And why should all the children suffer from that? Doesn't make any sense. So ultimately, I came to this awareness that this is being permitted, and we did choose to come here. This is the analogy of the garden, right, where Adam and Eve participate. They freely choose to partake of the fruit of the tree of good and evil. And in so doing, their eyes were opened and they became like the gods. Well, they don't tell you which gods, but I'm telling you, it was Enki and his family tree. That's what we became. We were like adopted into his crazy world that he created.
And that makes a lot of sense when you start thinking about things like Las Vegas taking place. Fantastic article you wrote about a very difficult subject. I think it's probably the best thing that I've read on it. Let me just turn the floor over to you and have you walk us through your satanic sacrifice in Sin City, if you would, please.
Sure. Well, I mean, I wasn't planning to write that article at all. It was weird. I just saw a picture of where the event happened. And then I realized, wait a second, how could they not miss that fact that the actual killing went down directly in front of an obelisk, a sphinx, and a pyramid?
I'm going to show that to the people right here.
Okay, good. Yes, please.
Yeah, there's the picture that you have on the article.
Right. It starts with that, but then go to the next one.
Okay.
And then you can actually see it much better. But I got to that point, I was thinking, wait a second. In fact, I think you may have used this picture as well in one of your presentations.
I may have.
In any case, that is right there is so obvious to me. At least when I first looked at it, I thought, okay, they're using magic. This is a distraction. They want everybody to focus on the Mandalay Bay when in fact this was a satanic sacrifice that had transpired directly in front of these Egyptian. They're not even artifacts. They're styled after it, but this is a modern temple of Set.
If you look at it, Mandalay Bay is way over here. Yes, we're being told the shooter was at Mandalay Bay, but really the entire area is directly in front of not only the pyramid like the Great Pyramids, but also a step pyramid as well. Yeah.
Not only that, behind, we can't see it here, but if you were to go straight down from this perspective, that McCarran Airport, that's where the flights to Area 51 go in and out of Las Vegas from.
That's exactly right. I lived in Vegas for a few years. And it's even funny to me that you got Mind Freak Chris Angel overlooking the whole thing. And not that he is any of that, but it's just the imagery.
Well, yeah, I mean, and right. And when I saw that, it triggered me into thinking back to, that's exactly what Enki looked like, more or less, with this radiant glow around him, sort of floating in this otherworldly thing. So yeah, and that is a part of the article and the revelations that I
let us remember that during the attack, that big light beam was coming up out of the pyramid as well. So it
always is. Yeah, that's what lux or means. Lux means light. So they're beaming this light up into the heavens for the gods, whatever. So this is not accidental, and all that stuff it's not even symbolic. It's part of their occult practices. I actually found somebody talking about it on the internet that was claiming to be a satanic, Luciferian, whatever, that they would go there December 24th to celebrate one of their high holidays of debauchery and stuff. I mean, it's just like. But although it started with that for me, I kind of felt in the back of my mind there was something I had heard about that name Paddock.
And can I ask you point out one more thing? People don't know this, but I know from living in Vegas, just over here sits the MGM, and facing right this way is a great big, huge golden lion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that figures in, but there's a great big, huge golden lion, like a story and a half tall, facing right over this way. Does that?
I don't really know.
Okay.
No, I'm not sure. And I know a lot of people think the Sphinx was originally a cat, but it wasn't. It was an Anubis. It was a dog.
Okay. Well, I'll shut up and let you go. I'm
No,
sorry.
that's all right. No, that's all right. It's fine. So what happened though was that as I started to go down this rabbit hole, I realized that there was something about the name Paddock. So I looked it up, and I found out it wasn't just a name; it's actually a word that is, in American language, it is what we call a corral, where you herd animals into for various purposes. So, in fact, where the concert took, the Harvest Festival, it was a paddock.
Literally.
Odds? Yeah. What are the odds of that? I would say absolutely zero that this had to be planned this way. That they're sending, for those who are initiated, all these symbols and double speak, that's all they're well aware of it. It's just a sort of a somewhat encrypted way of communicating to one another. In other words, the public doesn't understand it, but it's right there in plain sight. So that's why they do it that way. It's only lightly encrypted. So, and it also was curious to me that I found out that Paddock was also a name used in during the Renaissance. It was quite commonly known as the way when Satan would send some of his evil spirits into the world, they were typically, witches, as we would think of them, were they were called Paddock. So,
wow.
Yeah, I know. And I just came across something last night. I'm still working on this, but there is a Colonel Paddock at the Psychological Warfare Department in the military for the U.S. Army. And he literally wrote the book on psychological warfare and controlling information or perception. So
you're telling me there's a guy called Colonel Paddock?
Yes.
In the mind-bending department of the United States military forces.
Well, not only that, he wrote a 200-page book. I'll send you the link later. I'm not sure what to do with this. I'm still kind of working on it behind the scenes with other people in the alternative media, because we're trying to wrap our heads around it. Where does that all fit into this? Because once again, this cannot be just some freak coincidence. None of this stuff just happens by accident. It had to be planned.
Can I throw something out to you, just not to get you off your track, but Heidi Vandenberg is in the chat room, and she's I think the most gifted Vedic astrologer around right now. And we did some divinatory work with tarot cards, with the pulling the charts, and also with divining rods. And there seemed to be a unanimous belief that Paddock is not dead. How would that strike you?
Sure. Because he was working for military intelligence, running drugs, weapons, possibly human trafficking. And this is why he was so well paid. There's no way he made that kind of money doing video poker.
Could this also get back to Pedogate?
Yes. And so, yes, they're going to cover that up at all costs. I mean, clearly they're trying to, there has to be a motive behind all this. It's not just random. So part of it, I believe they were trying to trigger a civil war. That was at least the stated purpose that was going to start in November, but obviously they kicked it off a bit early, or maybe that's the way they always planned it. But it's a huge distraction from what's really going on, the treason, the pedophilia, the satanic practices that have been going on in our government for quite some time.
It's fascinating. Please continue.
Well, I mean, so it's very simple to fake a death, and they do it often. I mean, I came across some really mind-boggling research about this, that the Manson murders were actually staged. And Hollywood has been part of the military intelligence apparatus for some time. You can just look at Lookout Mountain in Laurel Canyon, where they had the military intelligence had their own film studio up in Hollywood, where they were producing these various things. And obviously it was part of psychological warfare, which Colonel Paddock just happened to be an expert at. So, yeah, the thing about Steve Paddock, the guy that they claim is the shooter, is that his father was arrested in Las Vegas back in the 60s, and then somehow he escaped from federal prison, was considered armed and dangerous.
You can't make this stuff up.
No, it's bizarre. And also the brother, Bruce, the other brother that has nobody's talking to because they can't find him, he's in hiding, he's also a criminal. So now
the other brother is also a criminal?
Not Eric, the one that's given the 2 interviews where he's babbling like a madman.
And like he's got something in his ear and they're correcting him as he talks.
Perhaps, or yes, something in him, yes.
Or something in him, very well put.
Yeah, so, but the other brother named Bruce Paddock is on the loose. They don't know where he is. He's a wanted man by the authorities. So there's a lot of bizarre stuff going on with that.
And now the security guard is gone.
Yeah, who just happens to be named Jesus or Jesus.
You know, I'm the only person that I've ever heard say that, Mr. UNICUS, and that is exactly the most, yes, his name is Jesus, of course, Jesus, but come on, people, how much more blatant does it have to be? And I'm just wondering, if you look at this, here's, you know, supposedly the shooter's nest up here at Mandalay Bay, 32nd floor, and is this the equivalent of the school book depository to us, that it's just a distraction and that the real slaughter may have come from a grassy knoll that maybe wasn't so grassy this time?
Yes. And I mean, it also happened at night, which made it much easier to conduct these military operations.
I wonder what floor Oswald fired from. I don't know if that building has 32 floors. I've been in it, but I don't know if it, wouldn't that be something if it was the 32nd floor?
No, I don't think it was that tall, but it was up towards the top.
It was exactly the same orientation.
Probably the ratio.
Except Kennedy was going away, and it's the same. I'll guarantee it's the same angle because I've been in both places.
Okay, that's something
anyway,
to follow up on.
That is interesting.
So yeah, they say on the 4th floor the windows were removed and that somebody was shooting a very heavy caliber weapon from, but there was also people on the ground that were shooting into the crowd. Somebody allegedly fired some 50 caliber rounds into the fuel tanks at the airport.
And at least one of them penetrated, but for some reason it didn't ignite.
Well, if it had been a tracer bullet, it probably would have. And if those tanks or one of those tanks had ignited, yeah, that would have been, oh my God, that would have been a Holocaust. But
I was thinking that maybe they were spent heat-wise if he fired them from Mandalay Bay, and that's why they didn't go.
Yeah, I don't think they could have penetrated from that distance. Even a 50 caliber is not going to penetrate from that far away. Because
only two of them penetrated, and only one actually got into the fuel. So
okay, well, that's probably because they were fired from different distances. I can't imagine any round being fired that distance and penetrating that kind of fuel tank. It's not like a gas can with just a thin little deal that they have. It's reinforced, so things like that can't happen.
Good point. So it had to be, by simple logic, one would have to think it had to have been fired much closer than the 32nd floor of Mandalay Bay. Yeah,
I'm assuming so, but there's a lot of things here we really still don't know for sure. But multiple shooters, absolutely, because the events at the concert area were only part of it. That multiple. There was a Bellagio, New York. I'm trying to think of the other one, but yeah, multiple hotel casinos were hit by assailants that night. So
well, that's not something that the media is releasing. Multiple casinos were hit.
They won't release that at all because, again, this is whatever this really is. It's so huge, and the implications, I mean, are just devastating to the deep state because I'm sure they're behind it.
Absolutely. But, yeah, and I know that you wouldn't say things unless you had a corroboration of them. So multiple casinos were hit that night.
Yeah, I mean, this is from people that were there. This is why we know, because the people who were there reported it. Absolutely. I don't think they'd be lying about that. What would be the purpose?
Now, one of the ladies that was there and survived met with a terrible demise just a couple days later. Do you think that survivors are in danger?
I suppose. It depends how much they talk. I mean, see, this is the problem with social media. You think you're a citizen journalist, and the next thing you know, you end up dead.
Right.
Because you've crossed a very thin line that to most people is completely invisible.
Please
Yeah,
continue.
well, they think nothing. These Luciferians think nothing about sacrificing a human life. However, I mean, the other big controversy is: did everybody at this event die, or was it staged? And obviously, people died. Could it also have been partially staged too? Yeah, I suppose that's what they do with false flags. I mean, this is the Manson family. I grew up with that, and it freaked me out. I really thought that was all completely real. Up until just a few days ago, I was reading through this research and I went, oh, okay. So they faked the moon landings. The same guys that faked the moon landings also faked the Manson family murders because they had a purpose, which was to control the population through psychological warfare. They wanted to scare everybody away from the counterculture. It made the hippies look like a bunch of raving satanic lunatics. And, or communists, whatever you want to call them, they were considered the enemy. So they had to destroy that. And they did it in part through this theater.
And please allow me to restate what you stated and what I believe 100%, and what other researchers like Jay Campbell and John D'Souza have said. People really did die in this massacre. It really was a massacre. Real people did shed real blood and did lose their lives. So please don't lose sight of that fact, and please send your good intention to the families and people that were lost. But don't let it allow you to think, oh, people did die. Everything that the news media is telling us is real, because both of those are not true. People did die, but we still are not getting anywhere near the whole story. And tonight, Robert Stanley, aka UNICUS, is taking us through what I think is the best piece of journalism on the things that lie beneath the surface on this attack. We're talking about the satanic sacrifice in Sin City. Please continue, sir.
Okay, so Sin is just another name for the moon god, which I believe it was one of Enki's many, many names that he's gone by over time. But this particular sacrifice isn't just to see the blood flow. It's a way of ensuring that those souls that were taken out at that time would ultimately be recycled and brought back to the matrix under circumstances that are not to their advantage. So granted, that wasn't a huge number of people as, like, say, 9/11, although they're calling this a new 9/11 just coincidentally on Route 91.
Just coincidentally.
Nothing
to see here. Move along. Yeah,
right. Well, these are just synchronicities. It's just a way of paying attention to this thing. They always repeat themselves, by the way. These guys don't have a plan B. This is the thing about the Matrix, is it's very transparent once you know what you're looking at. It doesn't really change. So, and that's why for me, when I looked at this picture, I was like, wait a second. All the wheels started clicking in my mind. I was like, hold on. And it just it was like a dominoes. They just started clicking down the line. And I was like, oh, gee, here we go again. So now I got to write this article.
UNICUS, do you make anything of these two towers standing right here?
You got it. Oh,
that's two towers.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just on Route 91.
Right, a stone's throw. I mean, that's a choked up 9-iron from the stage.
Huh. Nope,
they were going to build a great big thing like in London, the big eye, the Ferris wheel ran out of money. But these are, I want to say they're 14 stories. They're tall. They're tall. They're very tall. And they're still, and they're concrete pillars. And up the top, they almost look like torches because there's a bunch of rebar sticking out of the top of them.
Huh. Okay, so then technically that would be a tuning fork.
Ah, wow.
That's what this is. I mean, that's what it is. It's a tuning forks. Yeah, very interesting, because resonance is a part of reality. Everything is patterning of waves, and you can control that through these various, by projecting various wave patterns out.
Let me say DJ Ransom is the one that pointed those out to me.
Oh, interesting. That's a good catch. I'm surprised I didn't see that before. Thank you. This is the thing. When I wrote this, I was like, how long do I sit on this? Because I know that there's more. It's sort of like a snowball rolling down a hill. Like that piece of the puzzle I found last night, I was like, oh my God, I could barely sleep. I'm like, wait a second, come on. How how many times I got to keep adding to this, but it's going to keep going until it's done. I don't know when that's going to be, but that's a good find. So yeah, part of this, as I say, there's the main motivation for doing this stuff is order from chaos. That's the Masonic practice, which is Luciferian at the core. Not everybody who's a Mason is a Luciferian, or they don't knowingly support the Enki being the grand architect of the universe, his universe, the Matrix. But he is that. I mean, honestly, like when you see towards the end of the article there, something I've been sitting on for a long time because I didn't know what the proper context was.
You want me to go down?
Yeah. Well, since we're looking at the Black Pyramid of the Luxor, specifically this thing, the Mind Freak show, one of the things that Chris Angel, a fallen angel, right, looking like Lucifer, just happens to do part of his show where he levitates over the Black Pyramid in the light. Now,
I was there when he did that stunt, when he levitated over through the beam. And I mean, I'm sure it was a stunt, but it sure looked real.
Yeah, it better. Otherwise, he was going to fall for the trick, the illusion, right? But here's what's
not. He also walked on water in the pool at the Luxor as well.
Oh, good. That figures. So if you scroll down just a little more,
okay,
keep going. Yeah, that's where Chris Angel floated over it. But I've actually got a picture of it. If you just go a little further of him, yeah, Lucifer is definitely part of this. But keep going. Right, so yeah, here's the Mind Freak show. You see him doing his little presentation. Even the hands have light in them. So and the only one eye is shown, and he's wearing a solar cross, which is the symbol of Lucifer.
Absolutely.
In the Matrix. Keep going. Yeah, there's what the Matrix looks like.
There it is.
Cross. So there he is floating over the thing, right? Mm-hmm. So I just go a little further.
Okay.
Because everybody's seen this already. It is.
Wow.
And that is a Masonic symbol, right? Everybody knows
it is.
Been in a Masonic temple, you've seen that before. And so that is the all-seeing eye of Lucifer overlooking his creation. This is symbolic of the Matrix, and that's what a pyramid really, really symbolizes is the tree of good and evil. It's not a tree.
Can I ask you a question, which I don't mean to throw your theory off or anything. I don't think it will, but I think it speaks to, well, I've met Chris Angel on a couple of occasions, and he's not an angel, but he's not the biggest jerk in the world either. He's a fairly decent guy. He's done some things that, but he was very nice to me, very courteous to me, and he's not a complete, satanic, horrible person. And you don't really have to be leveraged or used by these people, do you?
No, absolutely not. It's just a gig. I mean, this is how he earns his living, is creating illusions. But does it serve a higher purpose within the Matrix? Of course. Is he being rewarded for it? Yes.
Absolutely.
No, you don't have to be. As I said, it's good and evil. And I've seen other shows about him, and he's not a really wicked guy, but he serves a purpose, a very important purpose because entertainment, people lower their guard. They don't think anything really is nefarious going on there. And these symbols or icons. It's like a brand logo. This is the freaking logo of the Matrix right here. This is Lucifer's logo. He's the light bearer. It's one of his titles. So there he is over his Matrix.
Boy, it looks eerily similar.
Well, because
and notice the Christ-like pose.
Exactly. Whereas before he looked exactly like Lucifer to me. I mean, this is like that whole, because that's what he looked like.
That just gave me chills.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to dwell on that too much, but yeah, it's a reality. That's just part of how he presents himself, and because that's what our souls really look like. Without the trappings of all this, our souls are these radiant, almost like a luminous egg, or what I call a seed of light.
So this is almost like us in real time, kind of, sort of, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see what a soul looks like, I have them posted on various parts of at the bottom of my web pages, but also in the Matrix Exit, I show you right there what a soul. I did a graphic representation of what a soul really looks like.
UNICUSmagazine.com.
Yeah, it's in the front. You can find it real easily. So, but this is interesting because this is only half of what we're looking at there is a sigil. The dollar bill is actually a magical instrument. So the so-called Great Seal is you're supposed to combine the two. Like when you fold the dollar in your wallet or in your pocket, those two things touch, and it becomes. You can see a representation of it. What that is a what they call a magic sigil, the seal. The sigil literally means seal. So this is something that a magician would use to conjure a spirit.
And each and every one of us does that across the earth, maybe trillions of times every day.
Well, yeah, the $1 bill is not as important as it used to be, but but it does serve a purpose.
I'll tell you the truth. I see a whole lot more of them than I do the $100 bills.
Well, in America, you would. I mean, here in Hong Kong, we don't see that many
Gotcha.
$1 bills or even bills in general. And like I said, it's only that one bill, $1 bill has that great seal, but it used to be on the coins. Anyway, the point is the one, you start with the one. That's the foundation of all the dollars. So, right. So, this is truly a revelation that I think is about time that someone finally put it out there in the proper context.
Absolutely. And am I reading into things too much, or does this kind of look almost serpentine?
Well, the whole
tongue
thing
coming out and stuff, maybe. I don't know.
Well, okay, but there's more importantly, the other side of the seal, the other half of it, I should say. You can scroll down. I'll show it to you. It's probably
all I was
easy.
going to say is the picture on here.
Yeah, you see, it was already there. That's called a capstone or a ben or a pyramidion. You see that bird? It's representative of the phoenix. And if you know anything about the phoenix, it comes to the end of its life and it bursts into flames. And from the ashes, it rises again. And this is symbolic of the matrix, how Absolutely. It was designed to be reset again and again. But please continue down. That's somebody from Italy wrote, or they scrolled this out.
I thought that was Chris Angel going over that lecture.
Yeah, very similar. But you notice that the light is coming from his eyes as well as his hands.
Like Chris Angel's was on the picture
similar.
facing the Harvest 91. He's got the light out of his hands.
Yeah, but Chris doesn't have it coming out of his eyes.
Correct.
But in any case, that's very, very close to what Enki looked like when he confronted me. Please continue.
He looks a lot like what people think Jesus looks like.
That's exactly right. That's why I was confused when he came up to me looking like that. I asked myself, I wasn't even sure he was real or it was real. I said, well, who is that? And he said, I'm the Father. That's all he said. Wow. And then he started laughing at me in a very sinister way. But so that was a clue. That was an important clue. He probably shouldn't have told me that, because that really ultimately gave him away. It took me almost 30 years, but I figured it out. Anyway, keep going, please.
And to complete the loop, looks a little like Charlie looked in those days.
Charlie Manson, yeah. Who said he was? Yeah, he said he was Jesus.
Said he was Jesus. There's the seal.
Okay, so it's been modified.
I get caught in a wormhole or a rabbit hole pretty easily.
It's cool.
Squirrel.
I understand. So here we go. It's been modified and it just condensed a little bit, but there is a phoenix. That is not an eagle. That is a phoenix.
And you can tell by this big thing on the back of its head. It's like a big tuft. Eagles don't have that. Phoenixes do. Right.
But they told us it was an eagle because it became symbolic of whatever. But this really is designed to, it's a diagram or a blueprint for a piece of jewelry, a true seal, a physical seal. Okay. A three-dimensional seal could be created from this. You see in the middle there, it's got these what are like a lace kind of thing, but it's actually what it is. It's a hinge. That's a hinge. Those two pieces are supposed to hinge together like this. And then you close it. You can actually see the clasp on the middle, on the outside. There's a clasp. So this is. So
you can put it between and squeeze and make an impression.
Well, you could do that, but I mean, more importantly, these two sides are meant to be combined. I've known that for years, and then you can scroll a little more and you can see what that looks like.
Are you ready, folks? We're going to combine both of these two, and that's what it looks like when they are combined.
Right.
Tell us about this. It's a sigil.
Well, it is a sigil. It always was, but now it is the complete sigil, because what I've learned is that a sigil is the geometric name or patterning, wave pattern of, like, okay, my name, UNICUS, could have a specific pattern, look, or whatever, like a logo. It is a logo, but it's symbolic, something I'm connected to. So when somebody calls UNICUS or thinks of UNICUS, it connects to me. The same is
a very specific frequency, a very specific wavelength, a very specific signature. That may be where the term signature comes from.
I believe so. So yes. So what you see here is the phoenix inside the pyramid. Both the word pyramid, pyra, actually means fire. It's a house of fire. But in fact, it's actually light. It's not a fire, because our ancestors didn't understand electricity or whatever. They always refer to light as something of some sort of fire, which is not untrue, but in any case, it's misleading. But so the phoenix bird is symbolic of the matrix. The pyramid is also symbolic of the matrix, or the tree of good and evil. The all-seeing I hear you now is embodied in the full glory of the Lord. This is a very important term, glory. It literally means a radiant light or divine light.
And the Lord being Enki, correct?
The Lord is definitely Enki. Yeah, at least of the matrix he is. Outside the matrix.
So now his capstone has all of the glory and light around it. Is that what you're calling
stars? And the 13 stars, which actually is the Solomon's seal, or the two triangles.
Mogen David.
Yeah.
The Mogen David, the Star of David. And it almost looks like, to my Western, to my US eye, almost a Christmas tree even. Tying it even closer to this.
Now you did it. Yes, I wasn't going to say that, but yes, that's what the Christmas tree actually represents, is the tree of good and evil. It is symbolic of this particular pyramid.
Wow.
And the lights on it are the stars, or the souls, the spirits that are here. Yeah, that's all in the divine secret. Yes, it's in the divine secret garden. Now, Jeffrey, I don't know you, but obviously you've been down this path for a while. So what I sense from you is that this is a realization from on a soul level that you're having. And this is important. I want people to understand we have this ability.
I'm glad to hear that you think I have a soul. I feel better already.
Well, or that you are a soul.
Right, that I am a soul. I worded that poorly.
It's okay. No, I mean, it's a typical thing that we say in our current language, but it's important to be specific here. It matters. Language does matter, and the way we're deconstructing this.
Words mean things.
Well, because I'm trying to put it in the proper context, which is this. We are often programmed or guided, encouraged to look to authority figures in order to figure these things out, to come to some conclusion and act upon that. However, we have a divine inner guidance that is part of us, that when we tap into it, and this is why Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within. He was advising us to go within, meaning that's the way we get out, is by going within and connecting on a soul level with because once we do that, as we start to do that, it disconnects us somewhat from the distractions of the matrix.
So I'm hearing you say the way out is in. Within. Yeah, but what does that mean? Okay, so this is typically what happens when a person starts to meditate or go in. They have some awareness of being beyond, outside, right? And this is because there is that aspect of us. It's a way of falling. Okay, my dad's guru said it this way, and I thought it was a very interesting analogy. We're back to the movie. So if you're in the theater and you turn around and are no longer facing the screen, what do you see? Is the projector. That's right.
You see the light coming out of the projector. That's all you see. So he says, in order to have this self-realization, follow that light back to the projector. And that's where you will start to find, the truth. That's where you'll realize who you really are.
So we really are the source.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. Yeah, absolutely. Well, those of us who are, that are souls that are connected here, you follow the connection, the remote connection back. And this is, I need to finish something again about
please.
How to get out of here is prepare in advance, because if you're caught off guard, it's really important that we prepare in advance. This is why we're having these discussions and why I write these articles.
I love it. You're saying things that I say to my folks over and over, and it's so nice to have somebody else say it than just me. It really is. I feel so good right now. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. No, thank you. So here's the thing, is that if we prepare ourselves prior to our time, whatever, when it's our time, because as part of the agreement, we're like, okay, I'm going to be here for this long, and then I graduate, I'm done. All right. That's what I signed up for. But a lot of times we get distracted and we get, just on the merry-go-round, just constantly going through another level. Okay. So if we really want to get out, we have to wait for our time when the window of opportunity opens. So we should call that a natural death, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the way we look at it. At that point, when you disconnect from the body, from the matrix, this is your opportunity to actually leave. Now, unfortunately, at that time is when you're going to have a lot of different spirits that come and trying to convince you, and they're very good at it. They're going to try and convince you to stay. And if you're not prepared for that, it's going to be very difficult to actually leave. And the thing is, you'll agree to their terms again, which is bizarre to think that any soul would do that. But because they're so masterful at this sophistry, this illusion stuff, I mean, this is what they do, because again, it's job security for them. Because like I said, once we all go, they're done. This thing's over, and I don't know what they're going to do after that.
Is there any reason, any good reason, any rational, logical, ethical reason for someone to decide to stay?
Well, that's up to them. And it's free will is still at play. So yes, they can. And I was shown this, that there's going to be a lot of souls that disconnect and leave, and they're not coming back. And the Luciferians know that. And that's why they're acting kind of desperate right now and doing all these crazy things, as they always do. But I was told that, shown in my mind's eye, mm-hmm. that there would be souls who choose to stay here, even though they've been shown that this is what it is, not just by me, but they have that. Like I said, the souls that are here, every last one of them at some point in the near future is going to have this moment of awakening, whether they like it or not. And some of them aren't going to like it. It's going to be a rude awakening for them because they've done nothing to prepare themselves. So when it happens, they're going to have to make a choice. Do you stay or do you go? Some of them will choose to stay. And the reason I was told that is because they were warning me, this is going to be a very painful time, because the empathy that you have for these other souls because we're all related. If you're empathic at all, if you're a healthy soul, you're empathic because you're connected to all of creation. And that means all the family. And of course, you don't want to see your family member remain behind in a place where they could be, suffering. Hmm. So,
UNICUS, what if that is the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit, the unpardonable sin?
I think you'll read more about that in the Divine Secret Garden series. There's a dispensation
yeah.
for souls. In other words, it's an understood thing that when a child goes into school that they're going to make mistakes, and you don't penalize them for the fact that things that they don't understand. You're trying to help them understand and grow beyond that. So the punishment is really something that we bring on ourselves. It really is self-inflicted, I should say.
Right.
And if anything, the divine beings that we are part of, this extended family of the Tree of Life, have a very great concern for us, and an even greater concern for those who choose to stay. And that's why they'll never stop assisting us. They don't directly intervene. They don't control us. This is the thing about truly divine beings. And
they're good parents.
Yes, but they always respect the free will of their children. Obviously, if they're going to do something really terrible or tragic or something then you have to help them see what the implications are going to be. Or like if they're going to burn their finger, you try and prevent them from hurting themselves. But this is an unusual circumstance here that we're coming up on. And I mean, I know it's happened in the past where there's been windows of opportunity where mass numbers of us would just wake up. My awakening was 1985, although I think I'd already had some inkling, went back in 75 when I went to the Great Pyramid and had that out-of-body experience in the pyramid.
So you were an early adopter.
Yeah, I guess you'd call it that. I mean, just for this particular cycle, season, whatever, season of the soul, I guess you might call it. But, part of the process here is we're breaking the God spell. There's this illusion that we're under, that we live under, that there is this omnipotent kind of psychotic God that is capable of good and evil. And one of the things that I found very, very helpful as when I was reading Divine Secret Garden is that it said the Bible, it does contain truth, but it also contains lies. So that he said the analogy was like, okay, if I give you a glass of water and you're thirsty, but then I tell you that there's a few drops of poison in there, would you still drink it?
Yeah. I always tell the folks that are following here, my estimation is it's probably 80% dung, maybe 20% diamond at best, the Bible. At best, that's very optimistic.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say. I just know that certain things are more convoluted than others. And
Thomas Jefferson said that too.
I'm not surprised.
Jefferson said that he called it, it has a few lines of the highest mind, which are like diamonds amidst the dung of the rest of it, which comes from much lower minds. So much so that to try to intimately study it is almost foolishness, is what Jefferson said.
Yeah, it's not contiguous. It's really very fractured, and it's done by design because if you take it literally, it starts to fragment your consciousness. Mm-hmm. There's no continuity of thought, and they want that, a house divided.
Yeah.
Against.
Would it surprise you if I told you the whole New Testament is intentionally jumbled in the order when they know when the books were written? They're completely jumbled just to keep us fragmented.
Yes, no.
Well, you're turning lights on in my head constantly, UNICUS.
Well, it's only because I've had that done for me, and this is one of the reasons I have access to so much of this information. Other people seem to wonder, like, where in the heck am I finding all this stuff? And it's always out there. But my agreement with the divine beings is that they would help me. They would provide me access to all of this if I agreed to share it with the rest of the family without
a quid pro quo agreement. It sounds like.
Yeah, but it's not nefarious. It's not some hidden agenda. I'm very straight up about it.
Absolutely.
The goal is to reunite the family at some point, and I know it's going to happen, or it is happening. I mean, you know how I'm absolutely sure of what's going on, how I take the pulse of what's, because you can't get it from the mainstream news, obviously is full of it, but even the alternative news media is a little bit weird. What I find interesting is when people write to me and they start opening up about things that are going on in their hearts and minds and souls. And then I think, oh, this is a perfect way to diagnose what's really happening as opposed to what they want us to think is happening.
Very well stated.
Yeah. So it's a blessing and a curse in a way. I mean, it's a huge responsibility, I think, being in this position. And I appreciate what you're doing. I know you're one of the few people that are out there telling the truth and helping others to see through the lies. But pretty soon.
Thank you for that. Is there anything else we should be looking at in your article here?
I'm trying to think. No, you're at the summary. That's pretty much it. That was, like I said, that was not something I intended to do. And I appreciate it when people share it. I know it's a very sensitive subject, but more people need to see that information and really understand it, because it's not difficult. It's just, I guess it's the sort of, it is, again, it's just breaking the God spell. It's seeing through the illusion. It's like, okay, so you've been to Vegas and you watch the magic show, and here comes this jerk named UNICUS, and he comes along and he goes, I'm going to tell you that card trick, exactly how it's done. And you're like, wait a second. No, I just paid money. And I'm like, hey, don't, it'll be fine. You'll be fine. And here I say, break it down and tell you exactly how the illusion is done. That's really all it is.
Wow. Powerful stuff. Very, very powerful stuff. Aside from unicusmagazine.com, are there any other outlets that people can either access or tune into to find out more information about you?
I'm all over the internet thanks to shows like this, but no, I mean, that is my website, and that's where people can communicate if they need to through email. And I have a huge archive of mostly free information there for anybody who wants it.
Amazing. Amazing. Is there anything that you'd like to say in summary, UNICUS? That I'm very optimistic despite what we're discussing here. I'm feeling extremely optimistic about the future, and I hope other people the souls that are here, will do everything in their power to prepare themselves, if that's what they want, is to leave. Also to help others. It's very important to be, as I put it, calm, kind, and creative, which sounds simple, but it isn't. In the Matrix, that's not exactly supported. But these are things that are, why is it important is because it changes our vibratory pattern, the energy around us. It displaces the darkness, the evil, and just like a boat displaces water. More importantly, it's contagious. We know this, that these patterns, these resonant patterns of what we could call good or divinity, are contagious. So being of service of others in that pattern, like I said, of being calm, kind, and creative, it changes the energy around us, and it affects positively people, other souls that are here. So it sounds like you're echoing those great American philosophers, Bill and Ted, when they said, be excellent to each other.
Oh, man. Yes.
Thank you so much for being with us. If you'd stay there right there for 1 second so I can say goodbye to you after we say goodbye to these nice folks. I always salute each and every one of you that's here seeking after truth. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll get back to the chat room after I say goodbye to UNICUS and answer some questions. As always, folks, stay fearless, unindoctrinate yourself, guide your own spirit, be your own guru, master your own ascension. And I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower. Ask yourself, has the world gone crazy, or have you? We're just here to try to help you answer that question and decide what to do next. And we will see you again real soon. For UNICUS, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty saying thank you and good night.